Hey everyone. This is a video for Brian embryonic robot sorry M I've just woke up from a nanny nap. Embryonic robot. Um Embryonic robot. Good God. Everyone knows who Brian is, I hope. Look, regarding Metal Machine music, yeah, I saw Lou Reed twice. The first time was he came out with the band that did the Rock and Roll Animal album, which I have, and it was a great concert. You know, we were right up the back in the bleachers, as they call it, but it sort of, you had to look around a pillar, but it was great. And then he came back probably the same year or maybe the year later and did a solo tour. And by golly, the main reason why I fell asleep was I was absolutely plastered. I'd been on the booze all day. I thought, I'll go down to the Lou Reed at the Horden Pavilion and see if I can score a ticket off a scalper. Like this is like I got there like 15 minutes before the bloody show started, and there were all these scalpers hanging around outside. They hadn't sold out. I thought, holy shit! So they all run up to me, and I think the ticket. This is, 1975 we're talking, right? So the tickets were about $5. And I eventually scalped one of the scalpers. He said, I said, no, I'm not really interested. I'm just hanging around, I'll listen to it out here. And he said, I'll give you front row seat for $3. I said, I'll take it. So I go in there, the place is packed. I walk in, I walk down the aisle, and right smack bang in front of where the microphone stand was my seat. So I'm as pissed as a parrot, I'm like sitting there going, and he came on and he did the same old that shooting, tying, pretending to tie a thing around his arm and shooting heroin. Look, I love that first Velvet Underground album, I really do, but you need to have Nico and other people in there to make it, a bit more varied, but he was pretty boring. And I actually fell asleep. I nodded off. And I sort of nodded off, and at one stage, I think some people had started to move down towards, they started to move down towards the front of the stage, and they sort of somehow, I was aware of something going on. I woke up, and I looked up, and I'll never forget the look on his face. The look of absolute fucking disgust and hatred. He was just staring at me and absolute fucking, like I'd fallen asleep. He was pissed off. But it didn't improve his performance. He should have gone ape shit. He should have got the stand and bashed my fucking head in with it and got the roadies to give me a good kicking. But no, so I don't know. I don't remember the rest of it. So that's a true story. The other point I'm getting at is here, I just have to say to Brian that I've just stumbled upon a channel called Glion, Glion. And there's an interview with Lou Reed from 2007. I think it's in Germany. It sounds like a German interviewer. And he's talking about the Metal Machine Music album. And Lou's I've never seen him so relaxed and comfortable in an interview. And maybe it's just, old age sort of thing. But he was, he even smiled, he was having a few digs at the interviewer every now and then, but, they were sort of, jovial. They weren't malicious or malevolent in any way. And he really describes, and I sort of believe him, that he described it as analog. Just watch the video. I'm not going to try and explain it, but he really talks his way through, and he's saying that the rumours that he made it to piss off the record company are not necessarily totally true. He actually loved doing it. He used to do it all the time for his own pleasure. Just putting guitars next to his amplifiers in the loft he lived in, and just letting them hum off. and then bounce off each other, and then turn another amp on with another guitar. And he just taped it, or he says he did it, and each side goes for 16 minutes and 1 second exactly. I'd never owned this album, but a friend of mine bought it, and I went round there, and I was a huge fan of No Pussyfooting by Robert Fripp and Brian Eno. That is a masterpiece. It's just unbelievable, great. But there is sort of melody there. There is structure. Um, it's just wonderful stuff. Metal Machine music is definitely not that. But so I was sort of into that, the idea of it, and so I thought I'll listen to it. And I did. I listened to all four sides, and I didn't, scream running away or get this off or anything. I just played it through, and I thought, shit, that was really interesting. I wasn't going to go out and buy it because it's the sort of thing you play once and maybe revisit it 20, 30 years later and see if you can get through it again, and if it has the same images in your mind than when the first time you heard it. So I'm not knocking that album. I think it's great, to be honest, but it's something you just don't. You shouldn't. People get silly about things, it's much better than some of the shit he put out later. I mean, that album, Sally Can't Dance, that came out the same year, I think, 75, or maybe the year later. I bought it and I was terribly disappointed. It only had one track on there I liked. Kill Your Sons. They're going to kill your sons till they run away. But it's got that guitar on it, the guy that used to be in the Rock and Roll Animal Band. But the rest of that album bored me shitless. I actually preferred Metal Machine music. Anyway, that's getting beyond the point. Yes, he did like to. Another thing was that so I recommend you watch it because Blue's quite serious. He's sort of he's having a bit of a laugh, but he's quite open about it, and I think it'll stand up. I think in 100 years, people will talk about Metal Machine music and not much else. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I had a similar thing in that I used to be a big acid head, over 50 years ago, and one time I had purple microdot, which is pure LSD, and I heard music not in my head, but actually all around me that made Beethoven and all them sound like the Chipmunks. And then I had this idea that the whole universe is actually made up of music, somehow. And to this day, and it still happens, it happens to me now, if I put my little air conditioner on, or if I sit on the toilet and have a big stink and shit and put on the extraction fan, I tune in to the sound of these machines, and then I can hear music in the background. Unfortunately, it's not exciting or interesting like No Pussyfooting or puke-inducing to a degree like Metal Machine music. But what I can hear is sort of like bland, middle-of-the-road, adult-oriented rock. It's like they're just hints of melody and vocals, and sort of like really bad Beach Boys heard through a really lousy record player. Anyway, I'm waffling on far too much, and I'll recommend it. Glion. I'm going to watch the rest of it now. I just have to let Brian know this. It's a really good interview. Okay, Uru, or Ulu,